Got it. Yay. I see your son in the background. Hi.
Yeah, hi. And, that's when I think he was in year one. They just took another set of pictures and I paid for it. So the 13-year-old is very different from that. So I'm waiting. Yeah. I'm waiting. Can't wait to get that new one to replace. People I have like a little boy.
I know. I feel you. Those days are gone. I have like for my daughter, like when she was born, then when she was 1, then when she turned 13. And you can see the progression. But I must be honest, I'm supposed to look at the whole picture like me and her and my parents, but I usually look at it to look at myself like, how am I aging? Like, is it that we have such a good photographer, like where we go, or am I timeless? I pump myself, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that looking at them, at our children, I'm sure we can see the changes they have been through,
Yes.
I feel like for us, the changes have not just been physical, but the big changes have been the internal ones, the ones you can't see, but they have happened in a big, big way. Yeah.
They have. You just remind me that I was listening to a podcast and I fell asleep while I was listening to, but I was like, I have to go back and really finish it. It says that parenting changes your brain, like it changes the makeup of your brain. So
I believe that. That's a fact.
Two people, for a fact, 2 people graduated out of high school, went to college, started working. And then one became a parent, the other one is not a parent. When they do brain scans, totally different because of just what it takes out of you. And it's not necessarily like it breaking down.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's just it changes, it transforms it in different ways. Yeah, so one is not any better than the other, but there's just a way parenting changes your brain. And therefore, this person was suggesting that, these Erickson stages.
Yes.
That they need to put a stage
for parents.
For parenting.
Oh, yes. No, I totally buy into that idea.
Yeah.
My daughter is turning 14 next week.
Oh, look at you.
When she's around, when she's not around. So, okay, like already insomnia is an issue for me, but especially when she's around, I'll always automatically wake up and go to her room and go to her bed. And I was thinking about that the other day, about how that has never changed since the first day I brought her home from hospital. Yeah. And I was like, so I buy the idea. For me, I even think there's a spiritual element there, if you're to ask me, because I mean, it's a wiring, yes, but there's something just divine about it. Because, and I always wonder to myself, for people who have like more than one child, does somebody have that for all the children? I think I would want to see that brain scan.
I know, right? I am so curious to go back and just now listen to it. The way you're listening to something, then you fall asleep. And I do that a lot with podcasts.
That's amazing.
They suit me. Yeah. But I'll go back and just hear some more. Of course, it has to do with also estrogen levels, for a man. You see that bonding, the oxytocin, all that, So, So,
that's amazing. I mean, I wanted to start this interview differently until I saw his beautiful face. My man is so cute. And I couldn't help myself. And now we've gotten into the whole conversation and I haven't even introduced you. So allow me to introduce you. And I would want us to pick up that conversation where we've left off about why we are listening to other people's podcasts, because they have done their research and we have not done our research. So we don't have anything to talk about. Anyway, I'm so happy that you're here with me today.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm so, if me and you, if we start doing this, we'll never even say your name by the end of this interview. So
Yeah.
happy.
Let's get the formalities out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm really so happy that you agreed to do this. I have, like, one of the things that I'm so happy about my professional life is having a connection with you, having a professional connection with you, but also a personal connection with you, because I truly think very highly of you, both as a person, a mom, as a professional. And in a sense, those variations are not even there, because just as a person, that's who you are, that's what you represent, irrespective of where you are. And so for me to call you my friend, I really do feel happy about that. So thank you. Finally, this interview is happening after many postponements, blah, blah, blah. But divine timing is the right timing, and here we are.
Exactly.
So Dr. Carol Chakua, welcome to this series that I'm doing that I am calling Psychologist to Psychologist, because I want psychologists to interview each other, to talk about what they're doing, to talk about how we're doing it, to ask questions that we ask ourselves or we would like to ask other psychologists if we were to engage with them, and let everybody into our conversation. I think people will be surprised about maybe how we think, feel, and articulate and express our views. And yeah, I think it's important to humanize and normalize psychologists, and we're not these people who can read your mind by just looking into your eyes. And also to just shine a light on, what it is and what it means to be a psychologist in Kenya, and what that is like in terms of you as a person and as a professional. So welcome.
Thank you, Major Lucy Wairimo. When you tell me how honored you are, I'm like, oh my gosh. I also have such profound respect for you and for the passion you have in this field, the work that you do, not just for the military, but just the passion you have for humanity. And I admire your boldness and courage in getting out there and doing what you need to do. So thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because I know that it's not super structured and systematic. It's random and organic. And so, yes, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting to be on it. And thank you for, speaking that into me. I receive it, because I think one thing that people may not realize is that for that which you see as courage and boldness and audacity, inside sometimes it's a bit, there's trembling, there's palpitations, there's don't do it, don't say it, So thank you for just validating me in that sense and recognizing that and confirming that what you see outside is not what is happening inside me. I mean, what you see outside is not what is happening inside. So that's great. Thank you. And I guess in a sense, I want to begin by asking you a question that I was asked by a guy who was my superior while I was in the military. And I sometimes think about that question, and it's because I haven't figured it out yet, right? So it was a time of profound sorrow in the military, And so me and him were making rounds in units that were affected to just make sure that we comfort the people who are suffering and grieving. And so we were taking a break under our tent, and then he says to me, help me understand what it is about you psychologists that you are so religious. I said, religious? What do you mean, sir? And he said, you people seem to have such a close relationship with God. Then I said to him, well, that's not religion. Religion is super structured. It's all those things. What probably you're talking about is spirituality.
Right.
And then he said, yes, spirituality. Why are you psychologists so spiritual? And I had the answer that I wanted to give him, but I felt he wouldn't understand me. In fact, I felt he would judge me. Okay. I felt he would think of it as verbal diarrhea. So you know what I told him? I told him I don't know. I told him I don't know. So what do you think? Do you think, number one, us as psychologists are deeply spiritual or not? And if you think we are deeply spiritual, how come? What leads us to that, or what has led us to that, in your view?
Okay, good question. Never been asked that.
I know.
Never been asked that. And so I definitely don't have an academic answer to that. I'm just going to give you my personal, reflective experiences.
Sure. Yeah.
But, I'm thinking, because we are searching to improve ourselves, to better ourselves, to make our lives, to improve our well-being.
Yeah.
And because we are spiritual beings, we go for what will keep nourishing that space. That's what I would think, because we know spirituality is one of the factors for well-being, being connected to whether it's a higher power or just continuing to want to nourish your soul. And because we are spiritual being, I think for me, a psychologist who is actively doing what they're doing and taking care of themselves really has no choice but to also look for ways of nourishing their spirit, just the same way that we really need to be doing self-care in terms of working out, getting out in nature, connecting with nature and all that, just as part of being really true to yourself, to contribute to your mental well-being. You've got to be nourishing all those aspects. I see you hiking and doing all those things as part of nourishing, But yeah, for me, that would be my answer, that, because spirituality is such a fundamental part of well-being, why not? If we are actually practicing who we are, then we should be going that direction.
I hear you, and it makes sense. So would you say the same thing about a mechanic? Would you say the same thing about a teacher? Would you say the same thing about a landlord?
I think if someone is truly following their calling, if they're truly calling, you see, a mechanic who really believes that a car needs to be fixed a certain way, taken care of a certain way for it to function, then, they're going to be sure that they're always looking out to service their car and to do that. So I would say anyone who is true to their calling, practicing what they believe, then they will do whatever it takes to do the practices that it takes.
You know what?
Yeah.
You've just broadened my mind in understanding this concept. And I'm now realizing, actually, the thing that has always bugged me is why it was like a psychologist thing. But now that I'm considering how you are explaining it, it makes sense. If someone is committed to their trade, irrespective of what it is, and they consider it as a service to humanity, then they will be able to connect with that humanity of what they are doing, which will elevate them in terms of their human consciousness. So you're right. It's actually anybody. Wow. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for releasing me from that bind.
Did you feel judged?
I felt, so this is the thing. Me and psychology is a powerful profession, right? We know, for me, I consider what I do as building on the human spirit.
And I love that. I really love that tag.
Because that's what we do, isn't it? That's what we do. So I think for me, I felt like that question was meant to take away from the intentionality, the intensity, and the investment, the heavy investment that we make into the profession to actually give high quality professional services of psychology. So for me, I felt like he was trying to say like it's a cop-out to be a psychologist, because then you can always quote God or, you know, something like that. And now, you see, now this is part of the reason I told him no, because, you know, I was like, I didn't trust that question, because the investment we make as psychologists is really, really intense. It's very conscious, it's intentional, it's a lot, you know?
Right.
And I feel like there's a minimization in people's understanding of what we do.
Agree. It's minimized.
So,
it's minimized that spirituality. It's minimized to being too easy.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just too easy. We're the feelings people. And that's just really unfortunate, because that's who we are. We are human before we are any of all those other things. We are human.
Right. Right. And for me, if you're to ask me, of course, now I understand what you've said in terms of, you know, anybody who takes their profession as, you know, a service to humanity and all that. But I consider, because we get into the whole space of people's vulnerability, that it probably takes a lot more than other professions, because they also get to tell us something about our own humanity, you know? And as any good psychologist knows, you do not find the answers for your client, you just support them to find those answers, you know? And in that process, you almost, how can I put it? You have the education, you have the experience, you have the exposure, but you don't always have a template for each individual person, you know? And so for a lot of professions, that's not the case. You know, in accounting, there are steps you should follow. If you are a chemist,
profession, yes,
there's you know, and you'll get it right, but that doesn't happen now. So just expand that conversation.
Let me get it right. The fact that we don't have a very set template.
The fact that we basically go in under people's skin, and we reside in their hearts, and we keep their secrets, and that's what we use to help them with the transformation they need to do.
Yes.
And how that is what, at the end of the day, I think makes what we do unique, especially if you, so I'm not saying all psychologists deal with people, but I'm saying those that deal with people or understanding systems, you'll always come across that. Vis-a-vis now the whole minimization of the profession. So that's what I want you to speak on and expand. Because I mean, for goodness sake, you have all the way a PhD.
And you know, it for me, in fact, when I think about, I do have a PhD, but you know, my PhD is not in purely psychology. So master's in counseling psychology, PhD is in medical education. My specialization then, though, was still in counseling psychology. So I did my research in counseling psychology. But however, I think for me, this is a very dynamic field, like you're saying, with no set pathway. And you and I know we are each charting our own path in this field.
Yes.
We're charting our own path. You don't have anyone who has done what you're doing, Lucy, ahead of you to look up to. I don't either. Okay. And that's the same with when we're working with clients, because we don't have this client is exactly the same as the one I dealt with last year. So I know this is the pathway. We only have principles, and the principles are very basic. You know, one, every human being deserves a chance, an opportunity to be given an environment to just feel safe, you know, to feel that whatever it is they are going through is valid. Because out there, everyone is judging where you're at. They're judging, you should have done this. Why did you do that? And therefore, I think that that's just really how I want to proceed with this conversation. It's same as how we are just doing it, charting our own path. Even with each client, you're just called to chart a path, a unique relationship with them. Okay, so that you are like, it's, and I think there's also a lot of creativity there, you know, like, okay, where is this going? Let's see where this goes. Okay, let's see. And it's different from saying, let me just, you're not trial and error, you're not a guinea pig, because again, we have principles that are guiding you. The principle of unconditional positive regard. You know, this person really needs to be heard, to be understood. The faith that the answers come from the client. You know, I'm not going to impose answers, but I'm going to create an environment to draw out their belief in themselves, to begin to formulate their answers. So one of the things, by the way, that for me, I love so much about the parenting space I'm in is that I get to learn so much from parents. Once they feel liberated, once they feel, oh, now I do not have to stick to a box when parenting. So they go and try this thing, then they come and tell me, by the way, this happened with my child, and this is what I did. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me write that down, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's something new. So just, I think getting into this space, knowing you don't have answers, having an open-mindedness of let's see where this will go, but still sticking with the principles of this person deserves to be regarded positively, deserves an environment where they don't feel so self-limited. And my job is to help them to remove those obstacles that are limiting them so that they begin to experience freedom. And when they experience freedom, Lucy, you learn from them. That's the beauty. You learn from them. Yeah. How do we learn from our clients?
A lot.
And I'm like, you brave person, you did that, you know?
I know.
Yeah. So,
I mean, and I am with you in that space of celebrating our clients, because, you know, when clients come and they're feeling like, you know, they are helpless, they are incapable, they can't manage, and, you know, we do what we do, and how they blossom, for me always blows my mind.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, I really admire this person. I am so proud of this person.
Right.
Because with all my clients, one of the few things that I realize for those who are able to make that transformation is that they develop a sense of courage, you know, and they develop a sense of belief in themselves, like, I can do this, you know. And it's always amazing to watch. I mean, so I am absolutely and totally with you in that space. So let's talk about your academic journey.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
What, how did that come about for you? And just outline it.
Yes. So this is how it came about. And I wanted to do law. Like after Form 4, I was like, I want to be a lawyer, not for any other reason, but because that was the thing people wanted to be then. I can't tell you it's because I'm such, you know,
debates and what.
No.
I think you would do well. I don't know why I just see you like you would do well, and you're like, my lord, you know.
Yeah, maybe, you know, if there are other lives, maybe in my next life we could give that a try.
Or maybe in this one, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? We are just beginning our lives. The second
it's true,
right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yes. So I wanted to be a lawyer. So when and the last thing I wanted to be was a teacher. You know, right out of high school, teachers are the most made fun of people, you know, because after, you know, in high school, you're like, yeah, you just do not want to be a teacher because they're the ones who are your source of sorrow during high school. So for me, that was the association. So anyway, I didn't have such a high regard for teachers. But then I got my results, and the only thing that I could do was education. So that's when I went, and I protested, but, you know, there was no other option. And, you know, then we still didn't have parallel programs. I think they started the year that I joined, or the year after, I don't remember, but there wasn't, that option wasn't there. I because I joined Moi University. So anyway, I started education very, very grudgingly. But then I attended a course in psychology. And my mind just flipped. You know those core courses in psychology? My world just opened. And I just started to soak in. I was so fascinated. It didn't matter any other subject. I was like, this is what I will do. Let's find, we will get through this 4 years, Sasawa, you know. So that's how my interest came about. And so immediately after I cleared college, by the time I was actually graduating, I had already applied to go and do my master's. So that's one other thing. I was like, okay, fine, I'm doing education, but I'm not going to be a teacher still, at least not in a high school. So yes, and that's now how I was able to enroll for a program in the US, in Texas, for counseling psychology. And I only had the first term's fees. And so off I went all alone into that big world, you know. Yeah. But let me tell you, I got there, and I think, you know, just those divine connections. And I got into this little college. It's a campus of a bigger university, but that's now in a smaller campus that just really had a lot of keen interest in international students and just developing them. And so the moment I went there, I landed, I got, they had very many opportunities to work on campus, all that. So it was just a matter of checking out opportunities and just taking advantage of them. And so all the entire time I was there, I was either on a scholarship, on an assistantship, or I was an RA, a resident assistant.
Resident assistant, yes.
So I didn't have to pay rent. I was a research assistant. So I had access to everything I needed to do research. I mean, it was so,
abundance.
There was so much abundance that when people would queue to go and pay fees, I would queue to get a refund check back. That's how much money I used to, you know. Yeah, because there were just many opportunities. But anyways, that ended. I loved my experience there, but I wanted to come back. So I came back. So came back with my master's, joined Moi University right away as a part-time lecturer initially, but then enrolled for a master's, a PhD program. Now, I wanted to do something in counseling, psychology related, but and that's the thing. Sometimes we make these decisions for the sake because they are necessary. Like for me, I needed to enroll in a PhD program so that I could sustain the job that I had. Okay. And so I looked around, and the School of Medicine was offering a medical education program. And I know that some people who are like, I was clear I wanted to do this for my PhD. I wasn't. I just needed to be enrolled in a program. Okay. And so, but then when I got there, medical education is a program where they enroll people from different fields. It's in the School of Medicine at Moi University. They want you to be able to contribute to the field of training professionals.
Beautiful.
You come from different fields. You don't have to be a doctor. Okay, so you're training health professionals. So as a counseling psychologist, how do I contribute to the field of training health professionals? And so that's when I focused my research on, and I was very keen in looking at how nurses are being prepared for their counseling related activities. You know, counseling related just means anything that requires their communication outside what we call the medical and clinical aspects. And so that's just where I went right in. I think for me, every space I've been, I've always been looking for ways, what gap, what's the counseling related gap in this space? What's the relationship or the psychological gap in this space? So I jumped right in. The program, I mean, I enjoyed it and all that, but I just knew that really this program, the actual PhD was to tick the box. Okay, and I'll be very honest with you about it here. It was to tick the box, but it didn't take away from my passion for mental health and my passion to look for mental health related gaps in the space I'm in. So as I'm doing that program, I'm also teaching at the university, but then I'm also practicing. And that's when now I began to practice and getting more and more working with children. And initially I'm working with children not because I want to do it and have a passion, but because it's children who are brought into my space. I'm in a small town in Eldoret, and very few counselors, very few people in that field. So people are just like, your child is having issues. Take him to, And so I got a lot of those kids, and that's when I really now began to engage with children. And I would put my heart into it. I'm like, I do have the skills. I do have whatever it takes to support these kids. And I'm sure you've heard me now talk about that part of my journey where I'm like, I would take care of kids. I would give them the right environment, but they would go back to the same spaces that contributed to their issues. And so over time, then I now transitioned from working with children to now working with parents, because I was like, I have too many kids coming into my space, but no parents. Going back to the same environments, parents have not been transformed, parents have not been changed. So Lucy has 3 children. I'd rather bring in Lucy and support Lucy to go and support her 3 kids. Because one of the things I realized is not all these kids that were being brought to me did not need to come there. They didn't have mental health issues as we speak, as we see them, as we describe them. And so what they needed was a parent who understands the environment that they need for them to thrive, for them to transform, for their behaviors to change. And so that's now how my, I just sort of, even my dreams of staying within the health education, medical education field, that didn't even go far, because I just went back to mental health space, supporting families, supporting children. And so for me, since 2017 now, I've been actively doing parenting programs. It's such a journey of growth, a journey of so fulfilling. Like I said, charting your own path. You see now, charting your own path there's also something good about that, because there's some boldness you have about just trial and error. You're like, okay, so I have no one to compare, so let me just, and then of course you make many mistakes along the way. You learn so much. With the openness to learn, then comes growth. So yes, so that's my academic journey.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, I am just soaking in all those golden nuggets.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I have had new information from just what you shared, and that's amazing. And so a few things. Number one, what I'm hearing from you, which is also what I subscribe to. Let the work guide you. Follow the work.
Yeah.
Follow the work.
Yeah.
Follow the work.
Yeah.
I'm also hearing, get out of Nairobi. Start something where you are. Throw psychology in the air and let it fall down like rain and make the grass bloom.
Oh, I love that.
That's also what I'm hearing, right? I'm also hearing you ended up as a teacher anyway.
And I absolutely love it.
So weird. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
How our experiences with especially people can make us decide on our own lives completely blind to the fact that we have the power, the opportunity, the ability to do it differently, although it's the same thing. This is what, for me, has blown my mind. Because, I mean, at the time, and I think that's what I realized about pain and suffering. It completely blinds the person who is in the pain and suffering to the possibility or opportunity. because you are just attached to how teachers used to behave, and you're like, me, I can never end up as a teacher.
No way.
But now you can look back and say, yes, I ended up as a teacher, but guess what? I became the kind of teacher I would have wanted for myself.
Exactly.
You know, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. And, you know, I think some of these things in life, the more you try and run away from them, the more they reel you in. They're just like, no. You are not going to run away from your purpose, you know, come back. Right. But it's such an interesting journey. You had such a life of abundance in Texas. I don't know how deep into the culture you got into. I wonder, did you wear cowboy boots and the hats? Did you did you go on rodeos? Yeah.
I never even met one, because I think it's just that idea of Texas. I mean, Texas is so big. One.
I know it is. I think it's the size of they say it's the size of what? Is it the size of Turkana or something? Not the size of Turkana, like the size of Kenya or something.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. So I never met one single cowboy. I still saw them in the movies, just as you did.
Stop. Because that's my next question. Like, so you never got into the culture of like just beef and cattle and whiskey and cigars and wait, you never got into the culture?
Let me tell you, since I came back, I've gone back like 3 times.
Yes.
That's when I actually began to experience not just Texas, but US. I was such a student the time I was there that when I go back, I'm like, this was there. This, like this is where, maybe it's just by the way, it could be also just who I am as a person.
Like
yes, exactly. Yeah, it is. I'm like,
hold up, Texas.
I had all these opportunities and I didn't really utilize them. Yeah. So now when I go to visit, I enjoy it. I enjoy
that's good.
Yes.
And I guess I also understand your mind frame, because for you it was like there was so much divinity in what was going on. Am I right to say you didn't want to do anything to mess that up?
That's true, by the way.
Okay.
And it wasn't intentional. I guess
I understand.
Yeah. Sometimes you get
also,
you get consumed with where you're at, that there's really not much room for.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. And I'm happy that now that you're going back, you'll be able to expand that more and more. And maybe one day post a photo with a cowboy.
That's what I'll do next. Next time I go, I will make sure I do that and tag you and be like, yeah, we did it.
Yes, that's amazing. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. Why didn't you stay and pursue your PhD?
I could have, but I chose to make a different decision for personal reasons.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to get into.
And you don't have to. For me, I just wondered. I mean, and at the end of the day, who says you can't go back for a second PhD anyway? There are so many possibilities in life and everything. But I love what you talked about to do with Moi University. Especially now that there are those people who are willing to open up themselves to the idea of a multidisciplinary approach to the systemic way of being able to solve the greatest problems that are bedeviling us at this particular time.
Right.
A key being health. And I mean mental health and physical health. And I think it's so phenomenal. I feel like they are really ahead of their game by having that kind of a particular program. And so from you, I've heard what it is you are able to draw out of it and how you took it and incubated it and just created it in your own image. And now that is what you're able to provide as a service to humanity. When you look at it that way and you like think of it in a broader picture, I mean, as a country, where do you see us going in terms of mental health?
Wow. I think we're going into a place of more awareness. We are already there, and that's continuing to increase and deepen. That's one. And with awareness comes acceptance and less stigma, more acceptance, more openness to experience issues to do with mental health. However, more and more, like for the last 1 year post-COVID, what I'm saying is that we have had no choice. We've been thrusted into it. So it's not like as a country, we've been very deliberate in opening up those spaces. We are being thrust into it. We really have no choice. It's like the flood the dam has busted, you know?
Yes.
And so we found ourselves there. And so for me, it's not necessarily that the awareness is because of anything really intentional, but it's because we've had to wake up. And because of that, for me, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because now it's out of the crises that we are experiencing. Then we really have no choice, Lucy. We have no choice but to come up with policies. We have no choice but to get our act together as a nation. It's not a place of now we are going to plead. Please, let's give us a space here, give us a space there. It's in your face, okay? And we are here, we are qualified, you know? So like really just get out of the way so that you can let us do the work. that's yeah. Like, you know, get your egos out of the way and all these other things out of the way and let us do the work because people are dying, literally, like death, physical death. Okay. And I've seen it. I've seen the transition from parents who are very resistant to coming to seek for help, parents who are resistant to having their children come to get help, parents who are resistant to listening to information and getting information of, hey, I need to step back and really look. This child is actually struggling. It's not just a behavioral issue. It's not a kichwangumu. They're not being disrespectful and entitled and spoiled. I've seen that transition to, hey, please tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And if we are experiencing that in our small little worlds, with the people that we are working with, that's where we are headed. If we are not there yet, even as a country, even as governments, we are at that place of, hey, please tell us what to do. Because you kind of seem like you know something, please tell us what to do. You know, like those days where people would go in the Bible times where they'll be like, they would just go to prophets. They'll be like, okay, just give us a word. Just give us a word, you know, because we're hungry, we're lost, we don't know what to do. And I really believe, I think that we are already getting there and that's where we are headed and there's no turning the tide. So for me, actually, as professionals, I would just say, let's keep positioning ourselves. And we're not positioning ourselves so that we can get the big jobs or whatever. Let's just position ourselves, keep doing what we are doing. Let's be available because when these things come, they'll just fall. They're falling already right into our laps because they're like, people connect with what you say or the information you're giving and the need. It just sort of locks in, you know, it just locks in. There's that connection and then we keep moving. So for me, we really have no choice but to be open to this information, to be open to these opportunities. We have no choice but to look for mental health professionals right now for the answers that we so need. Yeah.
And I mean, you have said it so well. You've said it so well, like, woo, even your passion about that, woo, gives me a shiver. But I mean, because what you're saying is real. And sometimes I feel like, and yeah, you use the word prophet. Anybody who's going to watch this is going to say, you see, they now have decided to make themselves into demigods. Well, power. What I just sought to. But I think we see it. We see it.
Yeah.
What you say is true. But then you wake up and then you have the PS for internal security calling a girl on the stage and telling her, come here. You want to tell me, then he's holding her and he's like telling the crowd, you want to tell me that if this girl makes a mistake, I can't beat her. Listen here, you girl, I'll beat you.
Oh my God.
Get away from here. You know, so me and you know that. And then you wake up like the following day and you hear the CS for Education has said, some funny weird thing about beating children and how that is not such a bad thing. And
you're putting it really mildly.
I know. I'm really trying to censor myself. Like, if I'm to really speak my heart, I think we'd have to censor this interview altogether. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. So me and you know that, you know, and me and you are doing our work. But the people who are in those positions to be able to effect the change, or even change the tide to like face to our true north, those people are facing south.
Yeah.
And they're walking towards the south. And they are carrying everybody else and everyone else, even those who are reluctant to go to the south.
Yeah.
So what is it you like think about when you like perceive that reality that we're in?
I really used to get frustrated. I used to sleep, and I used to lose sleep over it.
Yeah.
Because it's such a hopeless situation. There's such a sense of helplessness because you know that there's more to eat than what they are prescribing, kiboko and whatever. You know that as a nation, as individuals, we are so traumatized that that's what is just we're spewing out there. We know the underlying conditions. There's a time I felt like I just need to be a keyboard warrior, and everyone who says something, I'm just there to respond. And I was like, my goodness, it's aggravating my peace, you know? It's aggravating my peace, and it's completely taking it away from what I really need to do. And so I just step back. And for me, my mantra is one, and that is, I'm going to influence the person who is within my space, okay? Because I am actually experiencing the results. I'm experiencing the transformation. I'm actually seeing families transformed, you know? And that for me is good enough. In fact, it was so bad. I went back. I was like, what are some of these quotes that I need to just help me to know that small steps make a difference? And then I came up with this one, which I have put it on my WhatsApp setting. It says, I never look at the masses as my responsibility. I look at the individual. Just begin 1, 1, 1. And that's by Mother Teresa. And guess how much influence she had? I'm like, Sasawa. Me, I have my answer. I am going to do my part, 1, 1, 1. And not to say that there's no room for masses. I think we are all built differently and wired differently. And there are people who will just be there to advocate for masses. But I think it's in accepting who you are and what you're capable of and what is within your comfort zone without also staying too comfortable. You get?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But if every day you're making that difference, for me, that's fine. It's sad. It's sad that the PS or the CS will stand there and say what they need to say. But I realized I do not have the strength to fight them. But I have the strength to influence my immediate circle.
Yeah, there you go. What grows is what you water, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day. And I think that's a very important mantra for everyone, because I think there's no denying we are living in an extremely violent, depressing, and, you know, negative world. But in it, there are pockets of hope and joy and happiness and humanity that is still tucked in there. Yeah. And so the fact that we are able to see that, I feel like we are obligated to unearth that and share it and spread it, because somebody who actually needs it, it might even be a lifesaver for them, you know? And yeah, I agree with you. It's difficult to judge because we have the knowledge of understanding what the predisposing, precipitating, and perpetuating factors are. So, you know, I find that more and more, either I just won't engage or I just find myself feeling mercy, you know, or pity, you know, because nothing beautiful can come out of somebody who feels their humanity has been taken away from them. And so when you multiply that by the human consciousness, collective human consciousness of a whole nation or a county, you can see how that has gone wrong, you know, at the end of the day. Right. My feeling is that we do need a lot of healing, but with healing has to come with, you know, the understanding that we've had enough. So I guess in a sense, people haven't had enough, you know, and until we do, it will just be as it is. So I know you have to go. Final question. We are getting into the space of like a lot of variations from what is culturally acceptable or practiced or determined to be preferred when it comes to issues of mental health. And, you know, here I'm talking about alternative lifestyles that people have that they want to move forward with. And especially because you deal with families, that's the place where that is highly concentrated in. And what is happening at the family level, of course, affects policy, it affects laws, it affects basically even the ability of those people to navigate through even our own constitution. So that coupled with other challenges that are coming with the times that we're in, what do you see your role as being?
I think for me, it's to take you back to what is important, and that is a sense of humanity. What is important is what environment we need, because whichever lifestyles we choose, whichever way we are going, we still need to get to a space where we can thrive. That will never change. That's fundamental. It will never change. The virtue of kindness and compassion and love and a search for peace, that will never change, regardless of what lifestyles we choose or how culture changes. And I think for me, my role is to keep pointing us back there. Keep pointing us back to the importance of connectedness, importance of relationships, to help us to breathe. Like one of my biggest mantras is, let's breathe, you guys. Let's just breathe.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The breath is the most powerful tool, you know?
Yes, and it's so basic, it's so accessible to everybody. Okay, of course, unless now you're having issues and you are in the, you know, intensive care unit or you know, oxygen support, you know, to help you. But at the end of the day, it's to remind us that if you're breathing, if you're focusing on relationships, if we go back to fundamentals of kindness and love and compassion and empathy for one another, and of course, that begins first of all with us focusing on ourselves. You've talked about how much we need healing. Healing can only happen when, first of all, we are allowing ourselves to acknowledge that we are in pain.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that we are in pain. We acknowledge that what we are experiencing is actually pain. Is as a result of pain. It's just coming out in different spaces.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for me, I feel like that is and continues to be my role, to just take us back to what is fundamental. And that requires that I continuously work on myself. As a person, not telling other people to work on themselves, but for me, It has to be, first of all, an inner work. Anything that I do has to start with my own inner work, continuous inner work, taking breaks when I need to.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm able to guide other people to do the same.
Yeah.
So that's what I see is fundamental.
Yeah. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm not even going to add anything onto that. I feel like I'll be taking away from it. Last but not least, our profession.
Yes.
The majority of people are women. There are, of course, perception issues that have to do with that. Do you think a time will come where people will say, why is this profession with so many women? Where is the representation of men? Do you think such a time will come?
I hope so. I hope so, because we need the men's voice. We need the man's voice in this space. And I really hope that people will have placards and we say, we need 50% representation of men, because then that will make it more acceptable, whether we like it or not, because we need men to be able to forge forward in this space. So I hope that we will get there. Even in my work now with parents, because of course the people who reach out to me mostly are moms, So I always say, out of 10 clients, 7 of them are actually mothers. It used to be 100%, and then it became 9 out of 10. But now at least I'm getting 3 dads, 7 moms. And when I have, it's just how things are, Lucy, when I have a man in the sessions, somehow the sessions go faster. Do not even ask me why. I'm still trying to unpack the dynamics. Okay. There's a sense of, this is what you want us to do. Okay, let's do it. There's a sense of practical proactivity.
I mean, I think, can I give my theory?
Yes.
I think that by the time men are accepting to get into the circle of care, wamefika mwisho.
Yeah.
But when women, we want to get into the circle of care, is to help us to endure the problem. I think that's my theory. I'll check back with you and see maybe what you'll discover, but that's my hypothesis. We shall see.
We shall see. Yeah, I mean, let's keep exploring, because there's all that, even we like doing this research on help-seeking behaviors, men versus women, and we find it's women who seek this support. But I actually, let me tell you, if I'm doing 10 sessions, if it's individual sessions I'm doing, and I'm doing 10 sessions for a man and 10 sessions for a dad, for a lady, somehow by the time we're doing 10 sessions with the man, we are actually done.
Yes.
But with the lady, 10 sessions, we are still at, and that's, we are fluid like that.
It's a process, you have to meet the client where they are and go at their own pace.
Exactly, exactly. So my whole point is, the more men are in this space, then I believe that we are going to move forward faster.
Cool. I'm so happy about that. And I guess your last words are moving forward faster. I'll leave you with that. I want to appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time and for telling the stories. I know we could talk until tomorrow, but you gotta go, I gotta go, and provide our services to humanity.
Keep it short and sweet like that until the next one. And we need to have a conversation about a podcast. We stop listening to other people. We'll continue listening to other people's podcasts, but we also have ours, right? We also have other people listening to us, because we have a lot to say that is useful and necessary. So definitely, we shall definitely have to get into that. So thank you, my dear. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we shall speak soon. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This was fun, and all the best. So I'm gonna send this to you.